Fear grips the Sarasota's Hispanic community as more ICE and immigration arrests take place. On today's video, I'm going to give you guys an update on the most recent ICE and immigration arrests in the area and tell you guys some stories about my Uber passengers and the nightmares that they are living in the United States right now because of the immigration crisis. The first arrest that caught my attention was this U.S. citizen, 66 years old from Waco, Texas, who was arrested in Sarasota for harming an elderly disabled person. This arrest happened just today. Now yesterday, this man from Ohio, who is a U.S.-born citizen, was arrested for using a fraudulent ID. You would think being born in the United States and being a U.S. citizen, you wouldn't need a fake ID. This is the type of crime you would expect somebody who's undocumented to get arrested for, not somebody who's born with a driver's license practically. The Northport Police Department just arrested this man right here. He's a Mexican national, and if he looks familiar, it's because he is. This is the person that runs that food truck down there. Practically the only place you can get something warm to eat in the Northport area after 9 p.m. when everybody else is closed down. They're out there working. Now, he was arrested for no valid driver's license. Most likely, he's going to get deported here soon. Mexican national, no driver's license arrest. These food trucks are some of the only businesses open late in the Northport area. Many times people who work at night, like people that work in the hospitals, paramedics, law enforcement, they have very few places where they can get something to eat late at night that's warm and fresh and not like McDonald's or Wendy's. The irony of this arrest is that one of the #1 customers at these food trucks late at night is law enforcement officers because they work night shifts, and this is probably the only place you can get something decent to eat. Today's a Saturday, it's about 9 in the morning, and we're driving down Longboat Key. I just picked up an Uber passenger in Sarasota, and she is somebody who's currently undocumented. Now, her job is to take care of an elderly disabled person that lives in one of these condos out here. Now, this Uber passenger told me that she was having panic attacks and she can't even sleep at night because of her situation with her legal status. She entered the United States legally many years ago under a legal protection that the government has now made invalid. She told me that she was coming to the United States legally, did everything the legal way, and if she knew that she would end up in this country undocumented like she is now, she would have never came here. Her intentions were to come here legally to work. She had the options to go to several other countries which probably have better standard of living in the United States right now. But she chose the United States, not knowing that she would eventually find herself undocumented and facing a possible deportation. Despite that, the biggest benefactor of this person being here is the elderly person on this island that she takes care of every day. And this is a sad reality of what we're facing here in the United States right now. People who try to do things the legal way came here illegally, and now they're facing a possible deportation order. Now, on this particular day, it was rainy and it was a Saturday. Started Uber driving at around 4 or 5 in the morning, and I finished around 9 a.m. I had about 6 or 7 passengers. Only one of them was a U.S. citizen. So we're talking that during the weekends, most people on an Uber are undocumented people who work 2 or 3 jobs. As you guys know, I speak Spanish, so I talk to all my Uber passengers, and most of them understand that they came here illegally and they can get deported, and they live with that notion every single day. But the people that are the most distraught right now are the ones who thought they were doing things legally and are now finding out that they're going to get deported. U.S. citizen, 30 years old, born in New Jersey, resident of Port Charlotte, was arrested in Sarasota County for possession of fent analogs. So it's basically a synthetic or a derivative of a fent. That's unfortunately something very common in the food chain here. I don't know where this crap comes from, where it's made, but definitely some vicious crap. U.S. citizen from Riverview, Florida, that's outside of Tampa, was arrested in Sarasota, and we requested body cam footage of his arrest. Hopefully we'll get to see that. Now, this young man was engaged in a situation where they do an armed carjacking, Grand Theft Auto, by conveyance, which would likely mean he could have been like a Uber passenger or something. We'll get to see the body cam and see exactly what he did. But basically, he carjacked somebody's vehicle, stole it from them, and then he changed the VIN numbers, and then he tried to sell it on the internet marketplace. So we'll see if we can get the body cam footage for that arrest. There have been about 5 or 7 armed carjackings in this region of Florida over the last few months. So this is starting to become a new trend where people are literally armed and carjacking people, taking their vehicles from them, putting new VIN numbers on them, and then trying to sell these cars on the marketplace. Now, armed carjackings are really not that common in Florida, but this is starting to be a trend here. For someone like myself who Uber drives in this metropolitan area, this is absolutely terrifying because after all, these individuals are literally stealing people's cars at gunpoint. Here's another specimen of a US citizen. This 52-year-old woman from Jacksonville, Florida decided to come down here and pretend she was a contractor, stealing people's money on work related to hurricane cleanup. We're starting to see these types of arrests almost on a monthly basis where people come down here pretending that they're licensed contractors only to take deposits from people on work that they have no intentions of doing. So if you're getting some work done on your property, make sure you're using somebody that's actually credible. It's usually somebody from out of area, white person in their 50s or 40s, comes down here pretending like they're a contractor. When somebody who is unlicensed does work, that work itself is considered a theft because it is a fraudulent impersonation of the work by a contractor. And that work is a fraud because the materials are used and the work is done, yet the work isn't done up to current codes, which means that all the work they did has to get demolished. These types of contractor and real estate type frauds are very prevalent in Florida right now. I would imagine the vehicle somebody drives, where their license plate on that vehicle is from, their hygiene, their clothing. I mean, there should be a lot of signs to let you know that somebody doesn't really fit the profile of a real freaking licensed contractor. These people who are getting clowned by these so-called wannabe contractors aren't using full diligence when they hire people. This man is from El Salvador and he was placed on an ICE detainer, so he will be getting deported. I couldn't find any attached crimes to this individual in this area. Most of the people that are getting arrested and deported are because they committed a prior infraction. But it's becoming common for people who do not have criminal charges to just end up getting deported. Now, when they first started doing the ICE arrests in Florida, the law enforcement agency says that the regular hardworking people who had no criminal charges would not get arrested, that this was only for people who committed criminal offenses. What we've seen so far in Florida, that promise didn't last too long. But the overwhelming number of people that are getting arrested and getting deported in this area are individuals who broke the law. Not everyone, but overwhelmingly. We've pulled body cam footage for people who eventually got deported, and these individuals' behavior was simply not according to somebody who, if you are not legally in the United States, wouldn't you want to be respectful of law enforcement? Wouldn't you want to be law-abiding? Wouldn't you want to not draw attention to yourself so you don't end up getting deported? These individuals' behavior led to their deportation. So these are individuals who practically seal their own fate by their own behavior. For some reason, I don't understand. These police agencies really do not want you to see footage of undocumented people being arrested. So what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to pull the body cam footage of undocumented people before the ICE detainer gets placed, and that's the videos that we've seen on my YouTube channel of undocumented people who eventually get deported. But I have to pull that body cam footage before ICE gets a hold of them, because once ICE gets a hold of them, they won't release the body cam footage. But the general idea is that most of these individuals who are being arrested by law enforcement agencies and end up with an ICE detainer, if you watch the body cam footage of what they were doing and how they got arrested, they're individuals who kind of carve their own path into deportation. It's hard to feel any sympathy for these individuals. The ones that are more disappointing are the individuals who go into the offices when they have like an appointment to renew their papers, or when they just have a court hearing for their immigration status, and then they get deported there, because these are individuals who are hoping to do things the right way. They don't have criminal charges. They've been trying as much as possible to obtain legality, and those cases are heartbreaking because it's individuals who are trying to do things the right way. If they weren't trying to do things the right way, they wouldn't have a court hearing for their immigration status. In other words, these are not individuals who forced their way into the United States. These are individuals who voluntarily turned themselves into U.S. Customs and complied with all of their hearings, even the hearing that they knew could end up in a determination of deportation. So they're individuals who try to do things the right way, but it simply didn't work out for them. Now, one of my favorite types of passengers on Uber are those passengers who I know are undocumented, because these individuals are just trying to get to work. They don't want an escalation. They don't want to disrespect you. They don't want any type of problem. You know why? Because they know that their situation is delicate and they don't want to cause any issues where if you have U.S. citizens, they're disrespecting you. They're trying to break the law. They're not afraid of law. They're not afraid of anything. A lot of times they're armed and making threats. So there's a real difference when you're an Uber driver, when you get one of these undocumented people that's just trying to go to work versus when you get a U.S. citizen who isn't afraid of anything. Talking about Salvadorians, I met a Salvadorian once who was just covered in tattoos from head to toe. And it's, you know, that type of tattoo. And this individual eventually changed his life. He stopped hanging around the streets. He started working, created a family. But he was still Salvadorian, was still undocumented, and was still covered in tattoos head to toe. Now, if you saw him, you knew you could just tell the way he dressed, the way he acted, that he had changed his life. But unfortunately for this individual, with today's situation, I haven't seen him in many years. I would be afraid of him getting deported, getting sent back to Salvador, where with those tattoos, you know what's going to happen to him over there. It's kind of sad because it's an individual who actually got their life straightened out. I think he eventually might have even had a kid with a U.S. citizen, you know, so he was trying to be a father, and the guy got his whole life together. But, you know, this system sometimes fails people who are trying to do the right things but are still prejudiced by whatever things happen in their past. And not every story out there is a pretty one. In the case of a Salvadorian member who fixed their lives, completely reformed themselves, became a new person, became a positive person in society, did everything they could to change and improve their lives, you know, to get sent back to Salvador, knowing what's happening to gang members over there, people who they think are gang members. There's absolutely no due process in El Salvador right now. If you have those tattoos, they're going to send you to 40, 50 years in prison. And the crazy thing is, you know, these individuals, I've met so many Salvadorians who, once they come to the United States, they're able to get away from that bad element back in their home country. They become very productive people, very hardworking. They take on jobs like roofing. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't hang out with nobody. They just work and take care of their families. Now that they're people like, they haven't been given an opportunity in their home country, but they're people that, like, if you give them an opportunity, they can be very successful people in a good environment. What I feel like what happens with the country of El Salvador is that this country has failed their people for so long, and now they're cracking down on the people. But all those gang members in El Salvador are a result of the government's abandonment of the people. People around the world are praising what's happening in El Salvador right now, but I know a lot of stories of individuals who have those tattoos, and once they came to the United States, had an opportunity to start working, they became very productive members of society. It was that country, that environment, that put them in that situation. But give those same people an opportunity, and they'll be very successful people in society. But unfortunately for Salvadorians who came to the United States to try to become a productive member of society, when they get deported to El Salvador, if they have those tattoos, you best believe they're going to get 40, 50 years with absolutely no due process. I really believe that everybody has or should have the opportunity to change their life. Just because you come from a marginalized background or things have been hard doesn't mean that you don't have to be that person that society wants you to be because you have a criminal record or because you have some tattoos that make you look a certain way. I don't believe that individuals are past the point where they can't change their lives around. It doesn't matter how deep you are into the streets. At any moment, you can decide that you don't want to be that person anymore, that you don't want to continue breaking the law, that you don't want to continue all that. Now, the police is still going to profile you. You're not going to be able to escape social justice, if we could call it that, or the prejudice of people in society. You're not going to be able to escape that. But as an individual, you do have the ability and the right to determine for yourself that you want to change who you are. Just because you have those tattoos on your face or just because you have a criminal record doesn't mean you have to conform to being that lowlife that society has turned you into for the rest of your life. You have the opportunity, if you have the desire, to change who you are and make a productive person out of yourself. But that means abandoning substances. That means changing the way you dress. That means you have to make changes in your life that when other people see you, they can tell that you are not that same person you used to be. And you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself. Of course, in the country of El Salvador, you have a massive problem. And without a doubt, the overwhelming majority of those people have once again made things and decisions in their lives that feel they kind of like made their own bed, basically. But do you think if somebody gets deported to El Salvador. And for the last 5 or 10 years, they've been working. They haven't been using any substances. They've been living a good life. They've become a new person. If they get deported back to El Salvador and they see those tattoos on them, do you think that government's going to have any mercy on these individuals? This U.S. citizen from Sarasota, Florida is going to be gone for a very long time. He had over 25 pounds living in an apartment on the north side of the city. He was also charged with running a trap house. Now that's called a house of sale, but he had a trap house. It's called a nuisance property for trafficking. He also had a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, armed trafficking, so he's got quite a few charges there. He also has a criminal enhancement for doing it within less than 1,000 feet of a school church, so this guy's charges are fairly serious. Now, the charge that he has about creating a trafficking nuisance is when you have an active trap house and maybe has enough foot traffic to where it becomes a nuisance to everybody in your community. In other words, most likely this guy was moving recklessly as crap. I mean, when they're charging this guy with creating like a nuisance with a trap house, it would suggest that the amount of foot traffic he had going in and out and stuff was just wide open, no effort to hide it. And he's a convicted felon. If you're a convicted felon, you know the law is going to keep watching you for the rest of your life. So it doesn't seem like there was much of an effort on this individual to hide what he was doing. He was just kind of trapping out in the open. So it seems like he kind of sealed his own fate there. As you guys know, I've been pulling body cam footage of homeless arrests in the Sarasota area. Most homeless people have possession or paraphernalia when they get arrested. And what's interesting about these types of arrests is that it seems like almost, now I cut out stuff that you guys don't get to see the whole video, but I don't want to hurt these people or get them hurt by, exposing that they're a snitch or whatever. But every time I pull these body cam footages, the homeless people, they snitch. So let me just tell you something. If you've considered selling a few pounds of herb or if you got some cookies you're about to cook up, let me tell you something. These people that you are selling to, the moment they get jammed up by law enforcement, they don't say, I'm going to snitch. They say, I snitch. In other words, they've already been snitching. So it ain't like, I'll work with you or I'll work on reducing my sin. It ain't nothing like that. It's like, hey, the moment they get caught, they're like, hey, man, I'll tell you where it came from if you help me out. So, or hey, I snitch. So the individuals in Sarasota who are selling, trapping, let me tell you, bro, these J's, the moment they get jammed up, bro, you know the type of people you're selling to. I mean, these individuals, they're going to snitch off the bat. I mean, it ain't like they're going to wait till they get in the police car or they're going to talk when they're downtown. The moment the police officers come up to them and find it, hey, man, I work with you, dawg. I snitch, dawg. Or, hey, man, let's work on this. Or I can tell you where I got it from if you let me go. And I'm going to tell you anyways because, I don't want no problem. So if you're one of these people in Sarasota engaging in these types of activities, just know that the moment they catch that junkie 20 feet from your house or a mile down the road, the first thing they're going to do is snitch. There's no future in these businesses. If you negotiate, they communicate. If you supply, they notify. The Sarasota Police Department has literally taken like a handful of dealers off the street within like the last month or two. And it ain't hard for them to take them off the streets. They ain't trying. If you trying to sell an 8, they gonna narrate. If you got the 32, they gonna tell on you. If you got the work, they gonna make a report. If you're in your house trapping, they mouth flapping. These crackheads are scared of getting locked up, man. They don't want to go to jail. They want to be out here so they can use whatever substances they're on, bro. These people is not going to have any mercy on you. The moment that these crackheads get caught down the road with something, they going to point a finger right back at you where they got it. These people out here fold faster than a share at the Montgomery Brawl. So if you're one of these young people in the Sarasota area and you think you're going to start moving a little bit of something, a little pack here and there, let me tell you, the moment one of these people gets caught up, they're going to point a finger right back at you and they're going to get you, man. They're going to lock you up. No Diddy. If you don't want to get locked up with Diddy, don't sell Fitty. If they catch you trying to move that Fetty, they're going to lock you up with R. Kelly. These junkies will reveal if you make a deal. These dudes out here will let the cat out the bag if you put the work in the bag. This Nicaraguan right here was arrested for an ICE and immigration hold. Now he's on Hillview Street. That's the apartments across from the hospital. These apartments have had a handful of immigration arrests. Now these Nicaraguans are fighting. They're hitting people. They're hitting their wives. Domestic disputes. There's always something going on back in that neighborhood, and it's always Nicaraguans. Now, I don't know why there's so many Nicaraguans here in this metropolitan area, but they seem to be absolutely buck wild, reckless, domestic disputes, drinking, fighting. So he lives in this little apartment complex where they've been deporting people back to back in there, and they bring the attention to themselves by their behavior. Now, this individual doesn't exactly have any particular other criminal charges that I could see, but either way, he's living in these apartment complexes where the Nicaraguans have been buck wild. You may have seen my video that I requested from the Sarasota Police Department where the Nicaraguans were fighting in the apartment complexes. If you live in one of these apartment complexes and a bunch of Nicaraguans move in, we're talking music playing loud. There's always issues. Give you an example. Today I had an Uber passenger from Honduras. He lives in one of these apartment complexes in Sarasota. There's a lot of Nicaraguans. And he's telling me that he couldn't sleep. Now, this guy went to work at 5 in the morning or something, right? And he was telling me that he couldn't really sleep very well because all night long his Nicaraguan neighbors were up blasting music the whole night. And this is a very densely populated area where there's people all the way around. So this individual works during the weekends. He's like, bro, I didn't get no sleep. These guys were out partying, drinking, blasting music the whole freaking night. And this guy had to go work the next day in the morning. Now, he is undocumented, so he couldn't really call the cops or do anything. So he just has to look the other way. But at the end of the day, he's here trying to work during the weekend, and he can't get enough sleep because these guys are blasting music the whole night. He also tells me that these individuals, when they drink, they get violent, they hit their wives and stuff like that. So it's a constant problem for him, and he's afraid to reach out to law enforcement because he's undocumented. He's trying to stay low-key, but, these people are making his life absolutely miserable. All he's trying to do is work and provide, but he has to deal with these individuals who all they want to do is party all the time. So these apartment complexes in Sarasota, Nicaraguans have drawn attention to themselves. There's Hondurans here. They don't draw too much attention. There's Haitians. They definitely keep a low profile. Guatemalans are practically like ghosts. I mean, they're in the community, but they stay the crap out of the way, But in the case of Nicaraguans, bro, they're out here blasting music, partying, belligerently out there drawing attention to themselves, knowing dang right when the cops come up, they're going to get locked up and deported. Now, the older Nicaraguans that have been here for a long time are really good people. It's the ones that have come in the last few years. They don't get the picture, bro. All the other immigrant groups are just going to work, getting an Uber, keeping a low profile, staying the crap out of the way. These people are drawing attention to themselves, even though they're in a state of illegality. U.S. citizen out of Port Charlotte, Florida, arrested for cyber stalking. A lot of people think they can go on the internet and harass people and that they're not going to get arrested for it. You're wrong. Now we're going back to Thursday of this week. U.S. citizen, cyber stalking as well. A lot of cyber stalking going on. Behavior with victim under 12. If he was undocumented, it'd be national headlines. About a month ago, a story like this was national headlines because the person who did it was undocumented. But these type of cases happen almost on a daily basis down here in Southwest Florida, and they don't get a lot of media attention at all. Guatemalan, no valid driver's license from Ruskin, Florida. Almost certainly going to see a deportation if he bails out. This is what the vicinity of the homie's crib looks like. So bicycles outside, old appliances, fences that are broken, bicycles everywhere, garbage everywhere. Of course, with the YouTube rules, I can't really show you guys the place where he resides because that's a violation. But that's what's going on outside the property. So this homie's not adapted to life in the United States. He's kind of here, but he's not really doing too well at being here. If you're going to be in the United States undocumented, there's still a level of acclimation that has to take place to respecting the place's customs and stuff like that. When you're living like that, you're not really meant for this. I mean, if you enjoy living in filth and poverty, stay in your home country. I mean, why would you come to the United States to live like that? U.S. citizen, several charges of inappropriate material. Images. U.S. citizen, homeless, disorderly intoxication, resisting without violence. Vietnamese, U.S. citizen, DUI, from Pinellas Park, got arrested in Sarasota. It's a naturalized citizen, born in Vietnam, but U.S. citizen. U.S. citizen, possession of fent and possession of dog food. He's not homeless yet, but he's working on it. Venezuelan from Orlando was placed on an immigration ICE hold. His criminal charges was contempt of court. So what's going to probably happen in the future is that all the people that were on temporary status are now going to discover that they are also in contempt of court because they refused the order to leave the country. I'm not saying that that's exactly the case for this individual, but this is what's probably going to start happening more often. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but what I advise friends and people that I know or people that I meet Uber driving is why stay here? Why even go to that court hearing? Go to another country where you have better opportunities. They're not going to give you your legal status. They've already revoked it. They're not going to give it to you. So why are you going to stick around in a country that's disrespecting you, that's playing games with you, that's purposely making you be on the wrong side of law when you're not really doing it on purpose? Why stick around for that? Go somewhere where you're not being persecuted. This is Alma from Honduras. She was placed on an ICE and immigration hold. She was featured on one of our videos a while back. Now, she's from the East Coast. She came over here to Sarasota with some type of scam or fraud scheme she was running, but she got the ICE immigration hold. It took a couple months to get around to it, but they finally got her. Once again, this is another case of individuals who are not legally in the United States, yet they're doing things that are absolutely detrimental to the security of this country. Personal opinion disclaimer, I personally believe, in my personal opinion, that individuals like this, they let them run a little bit just so they can track them, see who they're associating with, or if they have resources to deplete them before they get deported. So sometimes when they take a long time to deport somebody, it isn't because they're not doing their jobs. It's just because there's some other things in the background that they want to handle, or they want to deplete the person's resources while they're here in the United States. So if they're doing scam and fraud, they don't want to just deport that person and they can go back to their home country with all the loot that they got here. So if the individual seems to have been lucratively making money illegally, they're going to grab that person and they're going to deplete their resources with legal fees and other assessments and stuff like that. Just make sure that their lives are as miserable as possible so that they can deplete their resources. They don't want to just deport somebody that's been stealing and scamming off the bat, because that person could go back to their home country with a crap load of money that they stole from the United States. And I don't have any tangible evidence to prove that. That's just my personal opinion based on the fact that when I see individuals like this, they make sure that the process is a little bit more elaborate, and I think they do that intentionally to deplete their resources, while somebody who's absolutely indigent will likely get deported right off the bat. I'm just going to assume that that's a logical tactic that law enforcement agencies would use when they're dealing with somebody that's making lucrative profits based off of fraudulent activity when they're here illegally. And again, I don't have any proof on that. That's just my opinion, but I think that would be a tactical way to go about people like this. Arrested just this Wednesday, this man is from Honduras. He was arrested on an ICE and immigration hold. He has a Bradenton address. 65 years old, Canadian citizen arrested in Sarasota for being homeless. And yeah, you can be arrested for being homeless. The charge is called lodging outdoors, aka being homeless. People are actually being arrested in Sarasota for being homeless. This is an actual thing people are getting arrested for. I requested the body cam footage for her arrest. Hopefully we can get it. U.S. citizen, no valid driver's license. Keep in mind that people that are legally in the United States can also be arrested for not having a valid driver's license. So if you're undocumented and a U.S. citizen gets arrested for it, you're going to get arrested for it too. It's so easy to call an Uber if you don't have a driver's license. Why somebody would drive without a valid driver's license, knowing all the legal repercussions that come along with it, whether you're a U.S. citizen that has your license suspended or you're undocumented and you never had one. Regardless, if you know the legal repercussions that come with no driving, why do you do it? It's one of those deals where okay, if you're undocumented and you get behind the wheel, you know you're going to get deported if you get caught. So if you do it, you know the risk you're taking. All right, everybody. So we can see that just in the last few days, there's been a handful of people arrested in this metropolitan area for being undocumented, getting the ICE deportation holds. So we can assume that on a weekly basis, maybe 6 to 10 people in the Sarasota County are being detained and arrested with those ICE holds. That's a very small dent in the total number of people who are undocumented. And that means that the people that are here undocumented, a lot of them are concerned. But keep in mind that most of these individuals kind of broke the law and did something they weren't supposed to. It's the ones that are getting arrested at those court hearings, their dreams are shattered because their intentions were never to be here undocumented. If they knew they were going to end up undocumented here in the United States, they probably would have never came here. It wasn't their intention to be here undocumented. That's today's video, and that's an update of the arrests that are happening in the Sarasota area in 2025. Thank you so much.